How we doing? I'm happy to be. I don't know if you heard, but I got delayed a little bit. I was supposed to speak this morning, and it's interesting. So I don't know why I thought about this, but so every holiday season for Christmas, of course my parents got us gifts. I have a brother and sister, and before she would ever get us a gift, and she would hand the gift to me, and then she would say, "But I have to tell you something about this gift." So do you have parents that do that? It's like, well, I'm going to give this to you, but there might be something wrong with it. It might be the wrong size. I've got a gift receipt. It's all, so she gives a disclaimer, which I thought was interesting. So it's sort of a family tradition. When we give gifts, we always say why the person won't like it before we give the gift, just in case. So my disclaimer for you today is I'm on 2 hours of sleep. But the good news is I had like 7 or 8 coffees, so I'm feeling really good right now. I might like pass out and hit that table there, but we'll do what we have to do. All right, so I'm going to talk about the evolution of content. I'm going to talk for about 45 minutes or so, 50 minutes, and then I know we've got some Q&A time, so I'd love to answer your questions. And of course, I'm speaking tomorrow too, so if you don't like this presentation, you're definitely not going to like what I'm going to do tomorrow, but we'll have some fun regardless. So I get to do a lot of speaking as part of my job. I love it. I love speaking all around the world, talking about content marketing. And there are certain things that I've learned about what makes a good speech and what doesn't. But I want to ask you first, and you can just yell this out. So what makes a good presentation? What do you want to see in a good presentation? I'm sorry? Energy? Hopefully I'll bring you some energy. I'm really hoping. What else do you want to see? Visuals? So hopefully I'll have some visuals for you. I'm almost positive. Including the crowd. Am I doing a good job including you in this? Would you like to do the rest of this speech? I'm going to sit down and take a nap. No, thank you. Anything else? What do you like to see? Enthusiasm. I'm going to bring some enthusiasm for sure. All right. It was funny. I asked this question a couple weeks ago, and there was a woman that said, brevity. And I said, thank you very much. Good night. That's the rest of my presentation. So she wanted me to be brief as possible. I don't know. How do you take that as a speaker? Please get off the stage as soon as possible. All really good answers. Unfortunately, you're all incorrect. You're all wrong. The answer is setting extremely low expectations. So so you laugh, but it's true. I'm going to set your expectations for you. My goal is that you get one thing out of this presentation that you can take back to your workplace, take back to your clients, those of you on agency side, and make this thing happen. So I really want you to get that one thing out of this that's going to make the difference for you. I've got 10 takeaways. The final slide here is a takeaway slide. There will be 10 things that I think that you can take home with you, but it has to be at least one for you to take with you. So hopefully then if I give you 2, if I gave you 2 things to take, if I set your expectations at 1 and I give you 2, what will I have done? I'll have exceeded your expectations. Exactly. See how you were going to say that, right? All right, let's get started. So you heard enough about Content Marketing Institute. We're all about education and training for content marketing. Started the company in 2007. I've been in this industry for 16 years now. I had a full head of hair when I started talking about content marketing. I don't know what happened. It's just, I don't know if it was the kids or something, maybe just too much talking content. All right. Before we get started, I'm going to do 10 minutes on the evolution of content marketing. I've talked to a lot of you already. Some of you have a really good grasp on content marketing, and I know you've had some really good presentations today as well. Some of you are still struggling with it. It's still new to you. So I'm going to give you, 100 years of history in 7 minutes or so. Does anybody know this gentleman? Do you know George Carlin, American comedian? So I'm a big fan of George Carlin, and if you get a chance, he does a 5-minute video on stuff. This is a video that's not safe for work, so don't play it at work. There's a lot of unsavory language in it. But it's about 5 minutes long, and so just type into Google stuff, George Carlin, and you'll find it. He basically goes through this idea of the purpose of a human being is to collect stuff. And the stuff that we collect is the good stuff, and the stuff that everyone else collects is the bad stuff. It just basically goes through that whole idea. And I was listening to this, and I'm like, this is very similar to what's going on in content over the past few years. So actually, I love this, because if you look at houses, so here's, you've got, if you go down your street and you look at, it looks like little storage units, right? These are just little places that we keep all of our stuff as human beings. And some of us are lucky enough to have 2 storage units. I do not. I have 1 storage unit. Anybody have 2 houses? Good for you. You're doing well. I don't know why you're here. Let's take you into marketing. So think about that from a storage, like a keeping stuff and getting rid of stuff. Think about your website now. So when the website was created back in the 90s or so, when you first did your first website, the first website I was involved in was the late 90s, we had a place to put our stuff. And this, as marketers, this was fantastic. As salespeople, it was fantastic, because we can now take all the stuff that we've been creating, all our product information, all our service information, and we can now shove it up on the web. And we're like, this is great, because people are going to get our stuff. They're going to see our stuff that's about us, our products and services, and how great we are. And they're going to see us, and they're going to want to become customers. And then the greatest thing of all happened. Social media was created. And now we have more places to put our stuff, right? This is great. We can tweet it out. We can put it on Facebook. We've got wikis. We've got blogs and podcasts, all kinds of stuff. And this is fantastic, because we've got more places to put our stuff. And this was the general, if you're thinking about content 1.0, this was the general philosophy. You have stuff that you want to sell. You're talking a lot about your products and services. You're creating content around that. And the belief is, if we push that out enough, we'll be able to attract and retain customers, right? So, and it worked really well until we realized that nobody cares about our stuff, right? We care about our stuff, but nobody else cares about what we have to say, for the most part. And we've got to get through this, because this is the reason why we're here doing all this content marketing stuff. This is my friend Jeff Roars, who works at ExactTarget, now Salesforce, put this chart together, and I love this, because you may be thinking, well, why do we have to do this whole content marketing thing anyways? The reason is that consumers before 1990, they didn't have a choice. There were only a few different locations that they could actually get information. So brands and media companies, big brands and media companies, were completely in control of the conversation, and they could dominate those channels. And now today, these are just a few of them. There's hundreds of different channels. And what happened is now the consumers are completely in control. They can ignore you, because they can get any information they want to. They don't have to talk to your sales reps. They don't have to go to your website. They know everything about you before anybody bought a car recently, right? Did you know exactly what you wanted before you went in? Of course you did. Why? Because you had all the information as a smartphone that you could look at 24/7. Absolutely. So this, whatever stat you want to look at, if you want to look at Forrester, Gartner, or Altimeter, they all say the same thing, that more than 60% of the buying cycle is complete before somebody will contact you. What that means is, if you're not communicating with your customers in a certain way at the beginning of that buyer's journey, you're going to be left out of the process. Especially for you B2B folks, this is really, really critical. So we started to say, okay, that's fine. I'll start creating some content marketing stuff, and we'll use that to attract and retain customers. Now, I just want to give out a couple definitions. I know you probably already gone through this, but I just want to level set. When I think of content marketing, I'm thinking of, you're a company, and you're creating valuable, relevant, and compelling content on a consistent basis to a very targeted audience, with the purpose of maintaining or changing some behavior. That's what we want to do. The content is not about your products and services. The content is focused on the needs, or informational or entertainment needs, of the audience. Right? It may be closely related to what you sell, but it's certainly not what you sell. So if you want to do a sniff test on content marketing, and you see a lot of content marketing campaigns that go on out there, and I'll talk about the word campaign in a second. When you look at that, and if it's just about the company, I would call that branded content. If they're telling stories about the company, that's branded content. That's content for the brand. Lego is a really good example. They do some content marketing, but they do amazing branded content. Hence, the Lego movie is, a 2-hour advertisement, essentially, which I love, by the way, which is fantastic. So if you think about it that way, content marketing is not about the brand, it's focused on the needs of the audience. So if you think about that a little bit differently. So we're not talking about what we sell. I think this is important to think about. Do we have any media companies here? Publishers in the audience? Couple? Okay, good. So I want you to think about this because this is your responsibility. What is the when you think about what's the difference between you as a marketer organization or an agency and you're doing work for marketers or a publisher, there's actually only one difference. And I've worked on both sides. There's only one difference. And it's the business model. It's how the money comes in. Everything else is equal. And like you as a publisher, you might say, hey, our content is better. But if you look at what Red Bull, we saw Red Bull, what Red Bull is doing, what Marriott is trying to do in the States, we saw Yuska Bank this morning, what they're trying to do is they're not doing anything differently, but they monetize it differently. 99% of the revenue that comes in from media companies, you get revenue coming in through subscriptions, paid subscriptions, or advertisement. How do you monetize your content marketing? You're selling more products and services, but everything else is equal. So I want you to think about that because that's hence the opportunity. There's no barriers to entry for you to create content that's just as good or better than anything else in your niche. And we'll talk about that a bit more in a second. All right, so quickly I'm going to talk about some research, and then I'm going to talk about 5 specific things that I want you to think about as we go forward. So first of all, we look at the global research. We've done research North America, UK, Asia Pacific. It's actually quite similar. About 9 in 10 companies are using content marketing. They at least say they use content marketing in one way or another. So business is good. I'm pretty happy about that. This I'm not happy about. This is the global effectiveness rate of content marketing. So when we asked the people completing the survey, we said, okay, you're doing content marketing. They check the box and we say, how effective are you at doing that? Only 35% say that they're effective, which if you're a chief marketing officer, you're getting fired. This is not good. This is a problem. We've got to do something about this. This is even worse. This is the ones that are saying they're really, really excelling. Less than 10%, less than 1 in 10 are excelling. And the graphic people put this little slide together of me crying because isn't that nice that I thought I put that in there. I wasn't going to show it, but I thought that was awfully nice of them to put a Joe crying slide, which was really good. So this is what keeps me up at night because everybody's doing this thing, but nobody's really doing it well. So we've got a lot of things that we got to talk about to get through this. And let me ask you this. That you know of in your organization right now, an agency's answer for yourself, not for your clients, that you know of, do you have a written, documented in a PowerPoint slide on a cocktail napkin, I don't care where it is, documented content marketing strategy that you know of? I'd love to see a raise of hands. Be proud. It's good. You're good. You're feeling good. Okay, so I don't know if you can see there. So there's about 10 of you. So less than 10%. And this is the issue. And I'm going to get to this in the research because it's super important as we look at it. So we went through the research, and when I looked at the research, all I wanted to know was, I said, what's the difference? I want to know the difference between those that say that they're really doing well and those that are struggling. And we noticed 2 specific things. The first is the ones that are really doing well document their strategy. They go through the process of writing it down, creating the strategy and the execution plan for it. Actually having it in your head, we've learned, is not good enough. That's where most of you have a strategy of some kind. Most of you obviously don't have it written down. There's something about writing it down that's important. So that's the first thing. We want to make sure that we actually write it down. The second thing is, go figure, they actually follow the strategy. It's not rocket science, but it's critical. So the 2 things you need to do is, 1, you need to document your strategy, and we'll talk about some ways to get started here today. The second is you actually have to follow it once you do. So those are the 2 things. And I want you to keep thinking about this as we go through the rest of the presentation. They're 8 times more effective, at least for measurement. They look at more metrics and less emphasis on web traffic. This is critical because the majority of marketers say they measure content marketing, number 1, through web traffic. Web traffic in and of itself is a meaningless metric unless it leads to something else. Is it leading to more subscribers? Can you show the revenue path of some kind? I don't know any analytics experts here, but anybody in analytics, you can take a Google Analytics chart and say, oh, look, it's going up and to the right. It's good. I can even make a case for if it's going down, it's good too. If it's going side to side, it's good. I can make any kind of case you want, depending on how I'm looking at it in the context. So effective content marketers look at more things than just web traffic. Web traffic can be important. It's a good indicator, but in and of itself, it doesn't mean much at all. This is the last one I'll show. So those that say they're effective with their content marketing are spending 37% of their total marketing budget on content marketing. That's not including staffing. Those that are not as effective, spending 16. All right, so here's the crazy thing. It doesn't matter, effective, not effective, middle of the road content marketers. Everyone is spending increasingly more money over the next 12 months, way over 50% on content marketing. So what should that mean for you? So good, those without a strategy, those that are not following it, are spending just as much money as those that are. That means over the next 12 months, get ready for a lot of horrible, horrible content. I'm totally serious. You're going to see more cat videos, babies, all kinds of stuff that you're going to see, because you have you have marketers, big companies that have big budgets that have no clear defined strategy, and they're putting a lot of money against this, and that's really, really concerns me. So I don't want you to be in that boat. So let's just complete this, and then we'll go on to the 5 things. So yes, you have things you have to sell. I get that. You have products and services that ultimately you have to sell. We want to connect that with a content marketing approach. We want to look at our audience, building an audience at the end of the day, and I'll talk about that a lot. And then if we do that, we can attract and retain customers. So if we look at that as an ongoing process. So I'm going to talk about 5 elements. I'm going to go through these 5, and we're going to start off with this one. Element 1 is you have to think about the why, and we have to get to the why you're going to do this in the first place. There's only 3 reasons why you're going to do this, and I'll give you 3 examples. You're either going to drive sales with it, you're going to use it to save costs, different than what they're spending right now, or the third one is what we call sunshine. It's all about keeping customers longer, keeping them happier. Those are the 3 things. So I want you to think about your content marketing that you're doing right now. Which one of these 3 are you focused on? So let me give you one example of each one. So the first one, let's talk about sales. Brian Clark started Copyblogger back in 2006, I believe. He blogged for 19 months without even selling a product, without having no offer. He just blogged every day about search engine optimization, the right titles, and he created a business around that. And he was able to create more than 200,000 subscribers, that people that wanted to get his daily blog that looks a lot like this. And how can you be a more effective writer? How can you do these kind of things? So he created over 200,000 subscribers. Now he sells software as a service. He basically sells SEO tools. And 99% of the revenue that Copyblogger gets in comes in through subscribers first. So the model is you get them to sign up as a subscriber to the content first, and then they end up buying the product or service. So almost every dollar and they're over a $10 million US business now, one of the fastest growing software as a service companies, and they do it all from first bringing the audience in and then selling to that audience. So this is an example of sales. I'm not going to go into Yuska Bank. Did Lars talk this morning? How did he do? Did he do okay? You sent him a little tweet love, tell him I said hi. I don't have to go through this, but so you already you saw the idea that they were spending a lot on sponsorship. Now they don't have to. They created their own 24/7 media company, video, television company inside. Now that is a picture of the bank, as you can see. And they don't have to spend the money on sponsorship because they have such a valuable audience now, and they use that as a replacement. So I love that example of Yuska Bank. And this is one of my favorite examples of all time. This is John Deere. So John Deere, the agricultural manufacturing company, they manufacture all kinds of tractors and whatnot. If you said, Joe, who is the largest media company in the farming agricultural industry? I would say it's not a media company, it's John Deere. So John Deere delivers the Furrow magazine, started the Furrow magazine back in 1895, delivered to 1.5 million farmers around the world, 40 languages, 14 different countries. Isn't that amazing? And they started then print and digital magazine, and they started it to help small businesses. They started it specifically to say, look, here's our customers, and how do we create better customers so that they always buy John Deere? They said, well, what if we just help them be better small businesses, understand how to run the farm better, how to staff better, how to run the accounting better. They cover all those types of new technology. They cover that in the Furrow magazine. So this is a really good example of sunshine, or customer retention loyalty. So these are the three things. Now, what I found in working with a lot of big companies is they don't have a good why for the reason they're doing. Somebody just said, hey, we should be doing a blog. We got to be creating content for Facebook. We got to be doing all these things. No, you really don't. So what I want you to do this, and you don't have to do this now, but you have to do it at some portion, is the average company has 13 to 15 different ways they create and distribute content. So you're thinking they have a print newsletter, an e-newsletter, a print magazine, a blog, a video, podcast, just list the content for Twitter, Facebook, whatnot, and I want you to list them. So all the things that you do in your company, I want you to list for what the particular audience that you're trying to target, and then I want you to put why ? At the top. And I want you to list, why do you do the blog? Why do you have the podcast? Why do you do webinars? Why do you do that newsletter? I was in a company the other day, and I asked them, okay, we have this this print newsletter that you've been doing for 10 years. I said, why are you doing it? And the guy looked at the person next to him and said, why do we do it? I said, well, the other guy said, because we've always done it. You ever get that in your company? I don't want that to happen to you. To be honest, if you're creating content on 13 to 15 different ways and different platforms, it may be too much to create really, really quality content. I think that the next 12 months is going to be less is more, where you're going to maybe create less content to put more impactful content together. The other thing that's important is you might say, hey, the reason why most content marketing fails is because of the quality. That's not true. Most content marketing fails because it stops or it's inconsistent. So that's where I have a big hang up on the word campaign, because if you hear anybody come up and say content marketing campaign, I don't even know what that is. Because when you create a content marketing program, it's a promise to your customers. It doesn't end. It evolves every day. Like, that's the strategy that you put together. Well, it's a fluid document. It will always change. But if you say, we're going to do this program for 6 months and then we're going to go... There was a company, this is 3 months ago, really large company. You'd know the company's name if I told you. They put 9 months into this web content platform. They had like 200 blog posts on there. It was really starting to get some traction, and they were done with the campaign, and they were just letting it sit there to die, and they were going to start something new. And I'm like, really? You've tried to create a relationship with your audience for 6 to 9 months, and then you're going to say, oh, we're done with you over here. We're not going to talk about that's not important anymore. We're going to talk about it over here. Like, who does this? A media company would never, ever do this. But we do it as brands all the time. It's like, oh, the blog posts due today. Who's going to do it? Well, let's get Bob's supposed to do the blog post. Well, Bob's out sick today. Well, who's going to do the blog? I don't know. We got to find somebody to do the blog. We don't put any seriousness to it. It's got to be critical, because it takes a while to get the thing done. So I want you to do that why exercise and figure out, why are you doing all these things? You won't know. I've done it over 50 times with different size companies, and nobody's been able to figure out exactly why they're doing each one of those. You might have to go, if you're in a big company, you're going to have to go to other people in the company and figure out, why are we doing it? Why does it make sense? Okay. So first of all, the why. Now we're going to get to the good stuff. Content marketing mission statement, something I'm super passionate about. So I've probably done about 35 or so launches of media products. So we've launched magazines and newsletters and webinar programs and podcast programs and all kinds of stuff. So I've been on the publishing media side, and I've been on a lot of different launches. And every one of them, at the beginning of the process, we start by creating an editorial mission statement. It's like standard. That's what you do. You just do that in publishing. You figure out, okay, well, What's our mission? Why are we trying to do it? Who's the audience? Why are we doing this? What kind of information do they want? And I've been into hundreds of brands, and nobody does an editorial mission statement on the brand side. So I'm like, okay, we all think we're publishers now. We all think we can do this, and we can. You can all publish, but nobody's doing the very basics of what have made media companies great over the years. So I want you to create a content marketing mission statement. I'm going to give you a couple examples, and then we're going to go through it so you can actually do this. And tomorrow we're going to really go in depth into it when we do the workshop in the morning. So this is Homemade Simple. Homemade Simple was created in 2003 by Procter & Gamble. The consumer packaged goods company, makers of Swiffer pads and all kinds of other goodness. They created this site, and they have over 5 million people subscribed to get daily email updates from Procter & Gamble. Isn't that something? Wouldn't you like 5 million people to say, yes, please send me your sales information? It's exactly what this is. It's content so good, or marketing so good, it doesn't feel like marketing. So they started with, what is our mission statement? What are we trying to do? So they're trying to enable women, that's their target, to have more quality time with their families. It's much longer than this, but I just boiled this down to something that's basic. Why is this important? You will never see, so this site is all about delivering, recipes, organizational tips for the home. You'll never see a 6-hour recipe on this site. Why not? Because it doesn't flow with the mission. How can a family spend quality time when they're in the kitchen trying to figure out this 6-hour recipe? It's not going to happen. So before anybody in the organization creates a piece of content, they know this. So it saves you a lot of editorial time if you actually know. I love this B2B example. This is Indium Corporation. They're a global manufacturing company, but they manufacture industrial soldering equipment. Really, really sexy industry. If they're trying to stick two pieces of steel together, they're going to make sure that they do it. They started a blog back in 2005, all about industrial soldering equipment. So those of you that think you don't have interesting stories to tell because you're in a really bland field, there's always something that you can tell stories around. So this was their mission statement that they started with: helping engineers answer the most challenging industrial soldering questions. So first of all, who are we targeting? They're targeting engineers. They're not targeting CFOs. They're not targeting plant managers. They're just talking to engineers. So the first thing is we have to target one audience. If you're targeting two audiences with your content, you're probably not relevant enough and it's not going to work. One audience. What are we trying to do? Answer the most challenging industrial soldering questions. We're not talking about ball bearings. We're not talking about siding. We're talking about just industrial soldering questions, so they become the leading expert. If you type in anything related to industrial soldering equipment, questions, answers, whatever, you're going to get something on Indium. It's changed the entire company. I think it was within 18 months, they saw a 600% increase in qualified leads on the site, and everything they do starts and ends with this blog. They have, I think, 21 engineers creating regular blog posts. Anybody work with engineers around a regular basis? So you know what I'm talking about. So, I mean, engineers, they just write the most amazing stories. They're great writers. No, not at all, right? So they hired an editor. They call them the content marketing manager, content marketing editor, that works directly with the engineers to get the raw content however they can. That's what a lot of people make the mistakes when you're getting employees involved in your content activities. You're like, okay, we need 750 words. We need it by this time. Put it in this format. Get it done. And then you're going to hear radio silence because they're not going to do it. They've got their own jobs. They're not going to think it's important. They're not going to want to do it the way you want to do it. So if you're trying to get content out of your organization, you're going to have to get the raw content however you can. If that's through an email Q&A, if that's by sitting across from them with your smartphone taking a video, if it's through Skype, I don't care how you get the raw content. Your job is to get the raw content, and then you have wonderful editors, which may be you, that's going to put that into story form. All right, that's where most employee programs go wrong. It didn't in this case. All right, so just go through the three parts of this. It's really critical because I want you to do this at some point. This is going to be the start of your program. I'm going to use Inc. Magazine. Inc. Magazine is my favorite. It's a regular media company targeting entrepreneurs, talking about trends for entrepreneurs. And there's 3 parts to theirs. So if you go to the About Us page on Inc. magazine's site, you will see that this is their editorial mission statement. So welcome to Inc., the place where entrepreneurs and business owners can find useful information, advice, insights, resources, and inspiration for running and growing their businesses. There's 3 parts. Here's your 3 parts. So first of all, who? Who's the audience? So in this case, they're targeting entrepreneurs and business owners. I don't like the 2 audiences, but they believe that the informational needs are similar to those 2. Maybe it's the same audience. I would agree with that. So good. That's the core target. There's so many companies that go wrong right here at stage 1 because they're trying to target 2, 3, or 4 personas at the same time. You cannot do that. You will get your lunch eaten if you do this. All right, so make sure you target 1. So what do you do if you have multiple audiences? That's a separate program. That's why this is hard. So target the 1. So first of all, who's your audience? Entrepreneurs and business owners. What are we going to deliver? The key word here is useful. Useful to them in some way. Is your content useful? I always like to ask the question, if your content marketing was gone or never existed, would anyone notice? I'm totally serious. You're laughing. Nice scarf, by the way. You're totally laughing. But that's true. Like, if people would not miss it, then you're not doing it right. You want people to say, where'd it go? Like, I want you to get, like, if your email goes out an hour late, I want you to get emails from people or calls saying, where's the email? See, you laugh, but that's where we've got to go. Because if it's not happening, we're not doing something right. We want to make sure we do that. So what are we going to deliver? Number 3 is the most important, the outcome. Most important. The outcome in this case is inspiration for running, resources and inspiration for running and growing their businesses. If you read any piece of content in Inc. magazine or Inc. online, it's trying to do one of 2 things. It's trying to make me as an entrepreneur, as a business, bless you, me as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, more profitable or get more revenue. That's it. They're not trying to sell me anything in the content itself. So a lot of us go wrong there. It was like, okay, we're going to talk about something really useful at the start, but by the end, we're going to be talking about our products and services because I really want to get them to buy that stuff. And I got salespeople that read this, or you start out that way, right? It's like, oh, this is a really fantastic piece of content. It was great. And then the sales team got a hold of it. And then the executive team got a hold of it. And then it turned into a piece of crap at the end of the day that nobody cares about. Right? That's what we're dealing with right now. And nobody's going to care about that. So you have to find out your outcome. Now, this is a really good thing for those of you that put editorial calendars together. So if you have editorial calendar, here's my topic, right? Here's the person that's creating the content. Here's the editor. Here's the due date, publish date, all that stuff. So you got your calendar and however you put your calendar together. Add outcome. I want you to add it like, what's in it for the reader? Are you trying to help them get a better job, live a better life, do something? What do you want them to do? Write it down. If you put that in front of the people creating the content, it will change everything. Because they'll know, well, if I'm reading this and they're not getting that out of it, we've missed the mark. Most of the time, content is created in organizations and the outcome is all about us and the products and services we have to sell. That's our why. We've already covered that. This is about the person engaging in the content. All right. So this is what we're going to do a little bit more on this tomorrow. But before you go any further, you've got to have this. And before you get more people involved in the content creation process, they need to know. You will save, you can get ROI right off the bat because you will save editing time if you give this to your person creating content. If they know who's my defined audience, what are we trying to deliver specifically, and what is the outcome. All right, everybody still with me? We're good? I hear there's alcohol. If you stick with me for a little while longer, there's alcohol at the end of this. I've been promised, and I'm going to drink some of it. All right, so I love this tool. Who uses Google Trends? Anybody use Google Trends? Okay, so like 20% of you. I love this tool for finding what I call a content tilt, or where we can figure out our content mission statement and be different. Because you got to remember, your goal is to be the leading informational provider around that particular niche. If you don't have the goal that if you're the leading informational resource, entertainment resource, whatever, to that target, why are you doing it? You need to be the leader. Because you know what? Then there's somebody else that's going to do it better because they're focused on that target. I love this. So if you go to Google Trends, so I just happened to type in knitting. God knows why. I have no idea why I did that. But I typed in knitting because I wanted to see what was going on. Just funny. It goes, the interest. So for those of you that don't know Google Trends, it tracks keyword intensity over time and how it goes. So you can see that, it's not doing great, but it bumps up every December and January. Why does that? Why does knitting bump up every December, January?
Making gifts.
Making gifts? Christmas gift, holiday gift? It's getting cold. That's right. I think those are two really good reasons. So there's more interest in knitting. Scroll down. So you type in, and you can do this around your phrases. So we just talked about that in your industry area. Then you go to Google Trends, you type in, and I want you to go down to the lower right-hand side of the page, and I blew it up here for you. This is where you can find new opportunities to be different, to be telling a different story. So you go down. Ravelry is a knitting site, I found out. I had no idea what it was. But then you find out, there's a 300% increase in knitting loom. You could start a blog on knitting loom, and you could go big. It could be your deal. So if you think about knitting loom, there's knitting video, knitting for beginners, knitting cast on. I'm not sure what that is. Double knitting's making a comeback. I don't know any of this stuff. But the point is, put your keyword phrases in here, and you can see opportunities before other people capitalize on that. So I love using Google Trends for something like this. I'm going to talk about social media. I have a very particular take on social media and where you need to be building audiences. I have nothing wrong with using social media to build audiences, but I really want you to be careful. So while I was at the airport today in Stockholm, I stopped by Starbucks. I'm sorry. Do you guys like Starbucks here? No? Yes? I got a yes? Yeah? No? Yes here. So this side likes it, so you all like it and you all don't. Okay, I don't know. This is you coordinated seating before I got here. I had no idea. So I want you to think about this. They have 30 million or so people that have liked their page, Starbucks' page on Facebook. How many, when they do an organic post update in Facebook, how many of those 30 million see that? Does anybody know the up-to-date stat? It's less, what is that, 6%? What'd you say? Or 6? Or 2 people? 2%. Actually, for those sites, there's new research that just came out. For those sites that have more than 10,000 people fanning them, it's less than 1%. So I just want you to think about that. Starbucks has paid millions of dollars getting this many people to like their page. 30 million plus people that like their page. And less than 1% are going to see my update, no matter what it is, by the way, even if it's a really good update. Maybe it's a new mocha latte frappuccino light or whatever they got going on that's just amazing, and they put a little cat next to it. Still only less than 1% are going to see it. So here's my point. They spent all this money building an audience on a platform they don't control. They have no control over this. This didn't used to be the case, right? When you did an update on Facebook, the majority of people that liked your page actually saw the update. Not anymore. And by the way, that's completely within Facebook's right to do that. They're a private company. They're trying to make $1 billion a day. They can do that. That's fine. They're monetizing it different. But you don't have to play into that game. So we use social media platforms for how we have to now, but don't go in and say, I've got to build likes, or I've got to build people follow me on Twitter. Use those for how you need to use them to build your own audience. I'll show you that. By the way, they have like 2 million people that like them on Google, whatever it's called on Google. Does anybody use Google Plus? I don't think Google uses Google Plus. Right? You use it? Do you like it?
A little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
You might be the only one on it. This might be you. And So the point is, I think it's interesting with Google Plus. I know a lot of people in photography that actually really like the photography communities there. The problem is that Google Plus itself has had 2 restructurings in the past year themselves. They don't even know what they're going to do with it anymore. So what I'm trying to get through to you is, don't give these social platforms so much power that you're going to build your content house on rented space, right? That's stuff that you don't have control over. I want you to focus on subscribers, specifically email subscribers. I saw another article, I see one every week. Email is dead, email is dead. Email is more critical right now than it's ever been. And if you want proof of it, when you need to change anything and change your password and do anything in the social media platforms, what do? They send you an email. Email is the most critical. Now, email is where we have the most control. Email is where we can get the data. And I want you to think about creating a subscription offer through email. And I'll get to so let's look at Copyblogger again. I talked about them. They have over 200,000 email subscribers. They have a regular daily update that they send out that somebody can subscribe, and then they get the update, and here's the piece of content. And you don't have to do daily. You could do weekly. You could do monthly. Is a little bit tough. But you have to create some kind of subscription offer so the people will actually subscribe. Now, if you're like most people, most of the email that you're getting is totally spam, and you hate it, and you hate your email inbox, but you still got to get through it the rest of the day. But you have what? You have a couple email newsletters you really dig, right? That's what you need to be. You need to be getting through all the other clutter that they want to pay attention to your email because it's that good. So we have a lot of high standards, but so if you can cut through all that clutter with amazing content, you can make some amazing impact. This one I love. This is print. So if you put in an order of what I like as subscribers the best, first is email, second is print subscribers. So this is TD Ameritrade's magazine, Think Money. So this is a print magazine, and this was a magazine that they were trying to cut forever because it's expensive. If anybody does customer magazines, you know they could cost a lot of money. And the chief marketing officer wanted to cut this every year. It's like, I can't show proof. I know we're getting a lot of qualitative feedback, but I don't think it's going to work. I don't know. It took them 24 months to get the data, to collect the data on the patterns of the people that read this versus what don't. So what they found out is those people that subscribe to this magazine, and by the way, it goes to traders, so really active traders just so think of they're trading 50, 100, 200 times a day stocks all day long. That's what they do. They found out that those people that subscribe and read this publication trade 5 times more than those that don't. So now the CMO is going around saying, this is the greatest magazine ever. And they'll never cut it because that's behavior change and they can show it. But it took them, that's the issue. And that's why you have to have patience with this, because sometimes it takes 1.5 years to 2 years to actually get enough data to show that it's working. All right. So I want you to think of subscribers. So if you said, Joe, how do I measure this thing? I'm going to do all this content at the end of the day. I've got to have proof. I got to show my boss, or you are the boss and you want to prove it to yourself. This is the question. What's the difference between those that subscribe to my content versus those that don't? And if you focus on email subscribers, you can actually tell the difference. We know that with our email subscribers at Content Marketing Institute, they're way more likely to come to Content Marketing World. They're way more likely to spend money. The average subscriber engages in 3 to 5 different things. They subscribe to the magazine. They go to webinars. They're really, really active. So it's like a Trojan horse for us. We're like, okay, if we want to ultimately get them to come to the event, we don't first show them come to the event. The first thing we want to do is get them to subscribe to the content, download an ebook, go to a webinar, view our magazine, and we can wrap them in content love. They're much more likely, because we know we have to have 5 to 11 content interactions with them in order for them to get them to do something, and that's to go to the event. So you have to think about it that way. What is the difference? The problem is it takes time. It takes well over 12 months to get this for the most part. All right, but you can do it. And this one, I'm going to talk about this in detail tomorrow. Most everybody's coming back tomorrow? Yeah? I guess if there's more alcohol, you'll come back. I will, if you will. So I'm going to talk about, so we're doing the workshop strategy in the morning, and I'm going to break this whole thing down. But I wanted to mention it here because for my next book coming out in Content Inc. in September, we basically looked at companies, startup companies that had no resources, hardly any budget, that created multi-million-dollar platforms, and they're doing everything they want to in life through a certain methodology. And basically what I'm going to talk about tomorrow is first you build the audience, then you monetize it. Where we get into trouble is we're creating content so, like right off the bat, we're going to do this video program or we're going to do this blog program, and you're looking for results in the first 6 months. Now, if you got some results and some indicators, great. But then my experience has been it happens after 6 months. In these, can I go back here? In every example we looked at, the average was 15 to 17 months to monetization. I know that's not what you want to hear, but it's the truth. It takes about a year and a half. It takes time. When we used to put these publishing plans together, we used to plan 3-year plans. Why 3-year plans? Because it takes a long time to build a relationship with somebody with content. Media companies know this, but we're very impatient because we've got budget cycles. I know, you got 9, 12-month campaign. We've got to get stuff done now, but we've got to set expectations in our organization for this. So we've got to get to that point where we build an audience first. So I'll talk about that in detail tomorrow. I'm going to go through the 6 steps. I'm going to go through how to do it, and we're going to work it so each of you can do this tomorrow in the workshop in the morning. All right. So let's say you do all this stuff. You know your why. You got your content mission. You're going to say, okay, we're going to focus on subscribers. We're going to build an audience. But you got content, and you're like, I don't have any audience yet. What if you don't have an audience? What do? So here we're going to talk about how you leverage social media to build an audience through influencers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share, this is an example that we've been using for a long time. We've used it with a lot of our clients that we work with. It's worked in every case, and it works really, really well. So steal this idea and use it. This is something we started back in 2007. So I want you to think about the definition of an influencer. What's an influencer? And to me, an influencer is where our customers are hanging out on the web when they're not on our site. So think about where are your customers right now on the web? If they're not on your site, where are they? Are they on other media company sites? Are they on other blogger sites? On the competitor sites? Whatever they are. And I need you to list those. Okay, well, how do you find them? You can use sites like Alexa.com. You can use Google Alerts is a great site to use. Tracker's a great site to use. Another good site is littlebird.com, where you can see what people are typing. Might be even a good usage for Clout. Do you guys use Clout here? Nobody uses Clout. Does anybody use Clout anymore? Do you use Clout? You do? You're checking your score like you're checking your score. How you doing? How's your score? Is it good? Is it better than mine? You're not answering me. You're just looking at me. No, I'm talking to Joachim. But I'll ask you too. I'm just looking at this general direction. So I do like Clout for that reason, because if you go into Clout, you can see what people are, what the influencers are, as they say, influencers over a certain topic. So I do like it from that perspective. So however you want to do it, however you want to get it, some of you have reputation management tools, that's great. I want you to list them. So start with 5 to 10. Don't get overwhelmed. We started with 42. I thought that was way too many, but you can start with 5 to 10. This was our top 10. All right. So first of all, you got to get the list. Okay. How do you activate the list? Okay. So this is what we do. So I'm going to use Twitter as the example because it's my favorite tool to do this with. So let's say that a 411. So this is social media 411. I completely stole this off of Andrew Davis. Andrew Davis wrote a great book called, if you haven't heard of Andrew Davis, he wrote a great book called Brandscaping. It's fantastic. So if you look at 6 tweets, 411, I'm going to start with the right. So for every 6 original tweets that you send out, 1 is going to be a sales tweet. You got Customer Service Award of the Year. You're tweeting out your press release. Some employee got some award. Like, nobody's going to retweet it. Nobody cares. But you get product marketing off your back. They'll say, look, you can say, look, I did tweet it out. But nobody cares. But you can get that off the board. It's these other 5 that I care about. The one of those 6 tweets in the middle, that's your own content marketing. That's your own really amazing blog post, podcast, ebook, white paper, video, something that you created or curated, and then you're sending out to that particular audience. The 4, that's influencer content. That's their blog post, their white papers, their podcast. You're promoting them and you're tagging them so that they see it, and you do it every day to, let's say, start with 5. Because I see a lot of these influencer programs, they start, it's like, oh yeah, we share content all the time, but they don't have a strategy around it, and they're not targeting the same people every day. If you pick out the number 1 influencer in your marketplace, I don't care if it's B2B or B2C, whatever, pick out the number 1, and if you tweet at them and share their stuff every day, by the end of the 30 days, you two will be best friends. Because influencers care about that stuff. The difference is, it's funny, I have Junta Delane is his name. He's a professor, marketing professor at USC. Every day he tweets something of mine. He tweets a quote, whatever. Well, when he came, he wanted to speak at Content Marketing World. So when he came through the speaking proposals, I saw his name right away. I knew it. I put it on the side list because I knew exactly who he was, and I don't know if that was his goal, but I mean, he's part of our community now because he's done that. So most of us we're sharing all over the place. I want you to share very specifically, so at the end of the day, you can build a relationship with those influencers. So do it for a month and pick 5. And you got to tag them. And by the way, you can do it in Facebook and LinkedIn. You can tag them just the same. So think about that. So 67% of the tweets that you're sending out is what we call OPC, other people's content, not your content. A lot of people are uncomfortable with that, but it really works well for this. Okay, so do that for a month. Then you go on to the next step. You bake their content into your content. So if we go along, this is an actual case study of what we did. So first we got the influencer list, then we did the 411, and then we baked it into our ebooks. So this was the content marketing playbook. We had 42 case studies in this. 26 of the 42 case studies were from those influencers that we were targeting. So let me ask you this. So of the 26, and what we did, we baked them into the ebook, and then we emailed out to them and said, hey, because we've been building a relationship with them, said, hey, we've got this new ebook out. We'd love you to share it. Just want to let you know you're on, Jay, you're on page 9. If you want to share it out. Guess how many of the 26 shared it out with their audiences?
All of them?
No, not all of them. I know it's hard to believe, isn't it? 24. 24 of the 26. The 2 that didn't share, we don't talk to them anymore because they're not very nice. But 24 of the 26, we had only 3,000 subscribers when we launched this program. We had over 50,000 downloads in a couple weeks time period. Not because of our subscribers, because of the influencers sharing out with the audience that we wanted to reach. Because what are we trying to do? We're trying to steal their audience. Just to be nice about it, we're trying to steal their audience. It's a proven method. So okay, that's fine. I'm happy with the 50,000 downloads, but if you're a senior marketing manager, CMO, you're going to say, great, that's great activity, but what is it doing for us? Okay, let me go to the next step. It's a whole process. Then we need the subscriber. This is where you need the offer. This is where you need a regular content offer for them to subscribe to. So if they come back, they're coming back to our page to view this piece of content, whatever it is, this ebook, this white paper that you bake these influencers in, they come in. I don't want your calls to action to be for your products and services. I want them to be for another piece of content. Just because they come to your page doesn't mean most of these people are not ready to buy yet, right? They're still figuring it out. They're still challenged around their problems trying to figure this out. So say, hey, here's some social proof. Join over 70,000 of your peers. Download this ebook, this amazing ebook that you can get, and we'll sign you up for our e-newsletter. So this was good. It was okay. It did fine. But this is what really did well. Does anybody like popovers, pop-ups? Anybody like them? No, you don't like them, right? You don't like to go to a site and get hit with a popover. It's horrible. It's terrible. But I have to be honest with you. Works tremendously well. So I didn't initially want to do it because I felt sort of like, do you use the term used car salesman here? Do you have that term? Okay, that's what I sort of felt like. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to put that in front of them because we're all about this content and education and training, and I don't want to put the pop over in front of them. I talked with the team. They said, let's test it out. I'm like, great. I'm all for testing. Let's test it out. We put this pop over up there. By the way, this is Pippity, Pippity. It integrates with WordPress really, really well. It's like $10 a month to do. And we put this up there, and we found that 60% of our daily signups, or daily subscribers, started to come from this. So right now, just to give you an idea, we get about 140, 150 subscribers to sign up a day, and 60% of the people come in through this popover form. So I'm like, hey, that's good. I like that number. So the majority of signups come here. But again, you've got to take it through the cycle, right? Because I don't know, those might not be good names. What's the behavior of them? Well, so what we found out is, waited about 9 months, looked it through the buying cycle, all the things that we offered. We found out that the people that sign up through this popover are some of our best customers. So now I love this. Because I know, some people complain. They come to our site and they say, I don't like that. I'm like, I'm sorry. And all I tell them is, some of our best customers have come in through that popover, so I'm going to keep doing it because we need to get that connection. But at the same time, you got to remember, attached to this is a daily or a weekly e-newsletter. So you have to have that value to send to them. That's your promise. So if you think about, what do I need to do at a minimum to make this work, you need to have some kind of an ongoing email offer to make this work, because you're going to give them the amazing ebook, the amazing big piece of rock content, and then they're going to sign up for the email. By the way, SlideShare is our third best subscription generator. So SlideShare, for those of you who don't know it, owned by LinkedIn. It's the YouTube for PowerPoint presentations. They get about 60 million unique visitors every month. And what you can do here is, if somebody downloads it, so you have the site, if you click on download and you set it up right, you can say, hey, sure, you can download this, but we would like to get your information if you don't mind. So you can set that. And they can click off of it if they don't want to, but you can at least send them the prompt, and it works really well for us as well on that one. All right, so this is the last one. This is really quick, and then we'll get to Q&A. This is sort of a flyer, but I want you to now go back to that influencer list that you created. I want you to have that influencer list in your mind while I talk to you about this, because it's really important. I think that today, right now, you have an opportunity to say, oh, well, we could build this. It's going to take time. You need over 12 months of patience. You're going to need to hire some really good storytellers to put this together, either contract or internal. Right? You're going to need to be really focused on what your niche is and being the leading expert. Or you could buy. And I absolutely think that that's an option for you, and that's where you go to your influencer list, because that's your prospective people that you could buy their platforms. Here's what we're seeing. When you put your influencer list together, what you'll find are there's a lot of bloggers on there. I don't care what industry you are, whether it's hardcore manufacturing or whether it's something in consumer packaged goods, you will have some bloggers that have done a really good job creating regular content, building a community, and building a lot of subscribers. And those bloggers are really having a tough time monetizing it, making money from that. So what we're seeing out right now is a lot of those bloggers are selling to both media companies and to brands. And maybe you're like, hey, maybe we don't need to build it. Maybe we can buy it. Let me give you some examples to prove the point. JPEG Magazine. This is back in 2009. They're going out of business. They have over 300,000 subscribers. Photography and the JPEGs for photography enthusiasts. So they're taking pictures. They're trying to learn about how to be a better photographer. But JPEG Magazine couldn't sell advertising against it anymore. Go figure, right? Nobody wanted to buy advertising on the site. So nobody wanted to buy them. They were up for sale or going bankrupt. They're like, okay, what are we going to do? Finally, at the end, Adorama comes together with them, and they put together a buying group. Adorama sells photography equipment to photography enthusiasts. So I want you to think about this for a second. JPEG Magazine, 300,000 photography enthusiasts. Adorama sells photography equipment to photography enthusiasts. Is this not like the perfect match in the world? Adorama bought JPEG Magazine. It's been a wonderful relationship. They've been able to integrate it into the sales and marketing process, but JPEG Magazine has stayed alive, and they've been running it like any other media company would run their program. It's just owned by a company and not a media company. So it's worked really, really well. There's been a couple HubSpot reports out. I don't know if those of you are familiar with HubSpot, the marketing automation company. They had a sales blog. They had a marketing blog. They wanted an agency blog. So they went out, and the Agency Post has a really good blog and a great community and a great subscriber. They purchased Agency Post and bought them, and now they have a sales blog, a marketing blog, and an agency blog, and they bought Agency Post. So what you're going to see over the next 12 months, 24 months, you're going to see a lot of this happening. Our prediction is in the next 5 years, the majority of media sites that will be purchased will not be purchased by media companies. They're going to be purchased by brands. So this is, I think, your opportunity. And by the way, you might be thinking, a lot of you are small companies, you might be thinking that, oh, I don't have the budget for this. Some of these deals that are happening are very small. Like, you would be amazed at how small these deals are, because some of these bloggers are really struggling, and they might say, look, I'll sell you it for a minimal amount of money if I can get an affiliate commission off of all the products you sell, or something like that. So there's a lot of different programs you can think about. I guess what I'm just saying is that there is a legitimate option for you to do the buy versus build opportunity. All right, here's your takeaways, and then we're going to get to Q&A. Set your goals. Why are you doing it? Wait, you're all taking pictures. Should I stand up here and do this? You like that? Is that good? Sales, savings, or sunshine. I really need you to do the why exercise. Because if you do that why exercise with each channel, you will start to figure out that maybe some things you shouldn't be doing, and then you can put more focus in areas that you think are more important. Focus on the reader's outcome. I know you have things to sell, but if your content is pushing things to sell, you will not be successful. All right. Create a content marketing mission statement, and we'll talk about that in more detail tonight. I want you to think about how you're using social media. Are you putting all your eggs into that basket? Or how can we use social media to develop email subscribers program? How can we use that influencer list to build our audience, bake the influencers into your content, create that engine to keep going and getting those subscribers? And then the flyer is the last one. Is I really think there's a buy versus build scenario. I talked to a couple of you that say, oh, it's really hard to continue to create content every day, every week, every month, whatever the case is. Yes, it's absolutely difficult to do. The publisher in the audience will attest to that. This is not easy to do. This is weird that we're all in the publishing business, but none of us were trained in this, and we're in marketing for the most part. And it's like, okay, well, nobody said marketers need to be publishers, but that's exactly what's happening. The marketing department is evolving into a publishing operation, and we've got to deal with that. So I think that at the end of the day, there might be an opportunity for you to buy if you don't have the patience. Did you get at least one thing? Did you get two things?
Yes. Just one.
You just got one?
Yeah.
You only got one. All right, we're going to continue because I've got to find another thing that she could take away. Hopefully you got more than she did. No, I'm just kidding. If you got your one thing, then we've got. Hopefully you got your one thing, and I know we've got some time for questions, correct? If we can. Do we have time for questions?
We do have time for questions.
Fantastic. Let's do that.
But just to give you a heads up,
Okay.
neither of these people asked any questions when we had Norwegian speakers nor Danish speakers. So, don't hold your expectations up. I'm trying to lower your expectations.
No. I'm feeling good. Can we?
If we were in the US, it would be a big line.
No,
here,
can
right?
we do a thing like the first people that ask questions get like the first drinks or something like that? Can we do that?
That's
Can we?
really not up to me to decide.
We got a question in the back. Do we have a mic, or do you want to?
Yes.
Okay, hold on. We're going to get the mic.
I'm not going to throw it.
All right.
There we go.
Oop.
Okay.
That.
Are you
Yeah,
gonna give
what
it a
was
try
up with
with the-
that? They had the mic and they took it right away from you.
Hello. Yep.
Okay, yeah.
All right.
Good sound. Thank you very much for a great presentation.
Thank you.
I was just curious, how do you convince brands to use other people's content? Because I think that's a really hard thing sometimes to convince them that they actually need to use other people's content and direct their users to other people's websites.
There's two ways. You have to show them. The easiest way, actually, is if one of their competitors is doing it and seeing success, because the whole idea of fear of missing out to them is the worst thing. So if you're saying, like, even with content marketing in general, you might say, how do you convince somebody to use content? That's a whole thing unto itself. Fear is the number one way, and I hate to say that, but it's totally true. Because what we usually do is say, look, your competitors are eating your lunch right now. That's an issue. Honestly, we say, let's test it. I mean, I'm always about testing. I'm like, look, let's do a pilot. Let's see how it goes. Here's the goals. Let's see what happens. There's one company that I saw a couple years ago that was doing a case study that did an influencer program just to one company. Multiple people at the one company, because it was a big B2B company and they were trying to get in, and they ultimately landed the deal. They created so many relationships through that it worked really, really well. So if you think about, like, what's the pain point specifically, if maybe it's a shutout, maybe like, hey, we really, really need to do business, or hey, our agreement's done in 90 days. What do we need to do to get this thing going? Or maybe it is for a subscription program. It's like, hey, look, there's multiple things you want to try. Like, you might say, okay, how do we build more subscribers? Yeah, you could pay for that. You could do paid sponsored on social media. You could do pay-per-click. You can get subscribers that way. You can get it through sometimes traditional. You can get by email lists, and you can also use influencer strategy. So I think that you need to sort of lay out all the options, but say, look, these are paid, and these are not paid. They just take time. So that, of course, it costs money, and go through that way. But I love the pilot. It's always my favorite. It's like, set the hypothesis. This is what we think will happen. This is what we're trying to do. This is our ultimate goal. Show them the 6 months. Show them it takes time, and then go from there. Good question. Yes.
Hi. Is it working?
I think it's working. Can you hear
Okay.
it?
Yeah.
Yes?
I've read The Thank You Economy by Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yes.
And I think a lot of the stuff you're saying is very closely related to a lot of the things that he's writing about.
Gary's good.
And generally talking about. And because you're saying that you're educating people so that they know, like, and trust you enough to buy from you. But how do you think it differs when there's a person, a person is the sender and a brand is the sender in that communication? Because do you get my question?
So, yeah. So if you are a brand, you have a brand identity on social media, and you have people. The best, I think, is to use both. But even if you're a brand, let's take your Twitter account. I'm hoping that there's a person behind it that's identifying themselves that go through that. It's always through people. So and this is the problem that a lot of the big companies that we work with have, because they're like, oh, we don't want to turn them into rock stars because then they might leave. Well, I'm like saying that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. If you're going to go that direction, say, oh, no, we don't want our employees to shine because they might. Here's what you want to do. You want to diversify. So if you're thinking about a stock portfolio in that way, you're not just going to put all your eggs into one stock, right? You're going to say, well, how do we get 10 stocks or 15 stocks so we can diversify? So if something doesn't work, or one of those stocks we have to sell, still everybody works. So I think that's where a lot of companies go wrong, where they have one spokesman. What you want to do is create that internal environment so you have multiple people that can communicate as for the brand or on the brand, depending on who the audience is.
Hello, and now it's working again.
I think he's
because I think that he was also talking about his knowledge connected to wine without actually ever mentioning that he has a wine store. So people went to his profile and was like, oh, he owns a wine store. Oh, he has this. It's also kind of connected to that I asked, that when the people working for a business show that, or an agency, have that knowledge, you kind of, melts together?
I did a sales event. This was a couple months ago, and there is a big company and about 40 salespeople, and one person asked the question, "What's the number one thing, Joe, I could do right now to grow my business and expertise?" And I said, "Well, start a blog." And they're like, "I've got to sell. I don't have time for blogging." And I'm like, "It's like you want to sell without selling." So and I'll talk a little bit about this tomorrow. But if you're looking at, let's just go to forget. I want you all. I mean, I care about your companies, but I more care about you. So I want you to be successful. Let's go down to you. I mean, every one of you can focus on your own expertise, and you do that 3 different ways. And I think that they're all 3 important. If you think of, I need a blog of some kind. I need to build my own audience. That could be hopefully in conjunction with your business, but doesn't have to, depending on what you're trying to do with your career. You have a book of some kind. And if you want to then do public speaking and get out there and grow that expertise, you have to have the book. There's a lot of big events out there that won't even look at a speaking proposal unless somebody is a published author or their brand representative. So if you're on the agency side and you're trying to get more speaking gigs, you need to write a book. I'm sorry, you have to. Because you're like, hey, because people that run events don't necessarily want agencies up there unless you're going to bring a brand, because people want the brand. But you can then become an expert, and you can totally go around the process if you have the book. So it's blog, book, and then that leads to public speaking. So I'll talk about some of the examples tomorrow, but on individual expertise, those are the hallmarks of creating that go-to person in the organization. And what I want to do in our company, and we've got a couple of people doing it right now, just in ours, is I want that to happen for them so that they can build up their expertise and they can become rock stars, and we can have more of those people out there doing that. If you can have 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 of those people in your organization out there doing that, it's so valuable I can't even explain. So I think that's where what I would focus on is diversifying away and really focus on the human being part of the social media equation. I don't even know if I answered your question, but I just started to talk. That's good.
Yes, it did.
It's like Yahtzee. It's like I'm going to shake it up. All right. No, thank you. Question over here.
Jakob. There you go.
Thanks. Great keynote.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you could elaborate on your views on content marketing fatigue in the audience when more and more brands are becoming expert publishers. Yeah. How will that react? How will we react as consumers? Are there, for example, room for 3 brands within the financial sector copying the way Jyske Bank is now operating? What will happen then?
So that's a fantastic point. The first thing to remember is Jyske Bank is telling a story their way, and they were the first to get out there and really do that. But I don't want to be the bank that duplicates that. I want to tell. So it's always like, tell a different story. Don't tell the same story a little bit better. We really need to find a different story. So if you think about the amount of content that we're being bombarded with every day, right? So we all are getting it. We're getting content from all over the place. We think that it's different than it's been in the past, but it's been a long, long time where there's been too much content to engage with in a day for us. Ever since the printing press was created, there was too much content for us to engage with. It's just we're engaging with it in different ways. So I would say, let's take your financial example. Those 3 companies should not be talking about the same things. You've got to be telling a different story. You have a different point of view with doing it. If you take it, let's say you're Jyske Bank, and you're going to take your logo off of your content. If you don't know it's you, or you put another competitor on that content and you can't tell, that's a big problem. And I'm saying this because we work with 2 companies that are competing against each other. We've done, and we did a little experiment with one of them, and we took the top 20 blog posts of the competitor, and we brought it in, and we took We just did the titles and the first like paragraph of each one, and we had the marketing executives engage with it. And we said, what do you think? Do you like it? And say, oh, this is great stuff. This is exactly the stuff that we want to be creating. This makes perfect sense with our strategy. And then we said, that's your main competitor's blog. They didn't even know. And they're both copying off each other, which happens a lot. So I don't want that to happen with you. I've got to make sure that you have a different story to tell. And there's so many niches to go into. That's why I showed you the Google Trends thing, because you can find a different way to communicate. I think the days of, hey, we just need to answer every question in our industry, I think those are gone for most industries. Like becoming the Wikipedia for our industry, yeah, that's like we really need to create and get an emotional connection with our readers in some way over something that's going to help them. And that's the way we're going to get it. So does that make sense? I never look at, like, by the way, like somebody will say, hey, there's just way too much content out there. I say right now, there's more opportunity today than ever before. And I'll talk about that tomorrow, where you have people with no budgets, no resources at all, becoming the leading expert in their industry, changing their lives with a fraction of what you all have to work with. And I'm like, wow. But they focused on a niche that they could really become the expert. So, we have to keep going down into a niche that when you ask yourself, could we really be the leading expert in the world on that? And if you have to ask yourself that question and keep going niche until you can honestly say, yes, that's possible. So it's a great question.
Any more questions? No? Then,
we got one over here.
Okay.
See, you lied to me. You said that they weren't. Although you raising your hand, somebody just said, I'm almost about to get a drink. And then, no, it's like it took away from me.
I don't dare to throw it, so. There we go.
I'll just make a short question then. So, do you have any tips for small businesses? Because a lot of the things that you've been saying are kind of large scale. What is the? You said something about starting a blog, but do you have any general tips on how to persuade small business to go into this?
So is the question how to persuade small businesses to go into it, or how small businesses can do it?
Yeah, how small business can do it.
Okay. Are you here tomorrow?
Yes.
Okay. So, and I'll give you I'll just talk quickly about it, because so what I'm going to do, tomorrow I'm going to talk about a methodology that we created called Content Inc. And it's 6 steps. And what we did was we looked at countless small businesses, entrepreneurs, startups, and successful ones. And we said, well, what did they do different? And we realized that they did, all of them did the same 6 steps, different time periods, but they all did the same things. So I'll go through, and that's perfect for a small business, because you can say, and that's the whole thing where it takes 15 to 17 months. And the whole idea is you have to choose one content type. Is it text? Is it video? Is it audio? One platform. Is it your blog? Is it iTunes? Is it YouTube? Consistently deliver that content every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, every week, whatever, over time. And I know that sounds really complicated. I know it's not. But that's the formula. That's what everyone used. And then there's 6 steps that they took within that framework. So I think that where a lot of small businesses go wrong, it's like, oh, we've got to start spreading our content all over the place and do a little bit here and dab. Now, if you're jack of all trades, master of none, you will not be successful, especially with the limited resources of a small business. You really have to, and what we found out is that small businesses really have to focus on owning a channel and like being the voice in that channel and doing over a long period of time. So I'll totally break that down tomorrow. We're going to go through a little workshop so you can do it. And I guarantee you'll be able to do that and say, look, you just have to, the challenge is you have to make choices. You might say, look, maybe we should stop wasting our time over here with Google Plus. Or, sorry, see, I got you looking, didn't I? Or something else. And I think less is really more, and there's opportunities to really focus on something and be great at that one thing. So, and we'll go through it tomorrow. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks again, Joe.
Oh,
And we all look forward to
awesome.
seeing
I was
you tomorrow.
hoping I could get one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great speech.
Perfect.